Welcome to our journey through the history of the United States as we explore the lives and legacies of its presidents. In this series, we will journey from the birth of a nation to its rise as a global superpower, witnessing the triumphs and the tribulations, the innovations and the injustices that have shaped this land. From the founding father George Washington to the 47th President Donald Trump, we'll delve into their most significant contributions and decisions, their struggles and successes, all set against the backdrop of a nation ever evolving. Our journey begins with George Washington, a figure who looms large in the annals of American history. Washington, a man of unwavering resolve and quiet strength, led the fledgling nation to victory in the American Revolution, a conflict that birthed a nation. But his leadership extended far beyond the battlefield. As president, he navigated the treacherous waters of a newly formed government, laying the foundations for a nation built on democratic ideals. His was the task of taking the words etched onto parchment and translating them into the living, breathing organism that is a nation. John Adams, a man of sharp intellect and unwavering principles, played a pivotal role in securing America's independence. His fiery eloquence helped to galvanize support for the Declaration of Independence, a document that proclaimed to the world America's unwavering commitment to liberty. As the nation's second president, Adams faced the daunting task of navigating the fledgling nation through the turbulent waters of international diplomacy, steering a course for America in a world still grappling with the implications of a new world order. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, was a man of boundless curiosity and unwavering belief in the power of reason. His presidency marked a period of significant expansion for the young nation, most notably with the Louisiana Purchase, a stroke of diplomatic genius that doubled the size of the United States. Jefferson, ever the scientist and explorer, commissioned the legendary Lewis and Clark expedition, an epic journey into the uncharted vastness of the American West, a testament to his belief in the pursuit of knowledge and the promise of the frontier. Chapter 4. James Madison, Architect of Democracy. James Madison, often referred to as the Father of the Constitution, was a scholar and a statesman who played a pivotal role in shaping the very framework of American governance. His meticulous notes from the Constitutional Convention provide invaluable insight into the debates and compromises that forged this cornerstone of American democracy. Madison's presidency was marked by the challenging years of the War of 1812, a conflict that tested the young nation's resolve, but ultimately solidified its place on the world stage. Chapter 5. James Monroe, the Expansionist. James Monroe's presidency ushered in an era of westward expansion and growing national identity. His famous Monroe Doctrine, a bold declaration of American foreign policy, proclaimed the Western Hemisphere closed to further European colonization, signaling America's emergence as a dominant power in the region. Monroe's presidency saw the acquisition of Florida and the settlement of the Canadian border, expanding the nation's physical boundaries and solidifying its presence on the continent. Chapter 6. John Quincy Adams, the Principled Statesman. John Quincy Adams, son of the second president, was a man of keen intellect and unwavering moral conviction. Serving as Secretary of State, he played a crucial role in formulating the Monroe Doctrine. As president, he championed a vision of a nation that would embrace progress and innovation, advocating for the development of infrastructure and the advancement of education. His unwavering commitment to justice was evident in his defense of the enslaved Africans aboard the Amistad, a landmark case that challenged the institution of slavery. Chapter 7. Andrew Jackson, the People's President. Andrew Jackson, a war hero and a populist, rose to prominence as the champion of the common man. His presidency marked a turning point in American politics, ushering in an era of expanded suffrage and increased participation in the democratic process. Jackson's legacy remains complex and controversial, marked by his forceful implementation of the Indian Removal Act, a policy that resulted in the tragic displacement and suffering of Native American tribes. Chapter 8. Martin Van Buren, Tested by Crisis. Martin Van Buren, a shrewd politician and a loyal confidant of Andrew Jackson, inherited a presidency plagued by economic turmoil. The Panic of 1837, a devastating financial crisis gripped the nation, testing Van Buren's leadership and shaping his presidency. His efforts to stabilize the economy and navigate the contentious issue of slavery would have lasting implications for the nation's future. Chapter 9. William Henry Harrison, a presidency cut short. William Henry Harrison's presidency was tragically cut short after just 1 month, making his tenure the shortest in American history. A war hero known for his victory at the Battle of Tippecanoe, Harrison's legacy is intertwined with the westward expansion of the United States and the ongoing conflicts with Native American tribes. John Tyler, thrust into the presidency upon the death of William Henry Harrison, navigated a path fraught with political division. A staunch advocate for states' rights, Tyler clashed with members of his own Whig Party, setting the stage for the partisan battles that would come to define American politics. His annexation of Texas, a controversial move that expanded slavery and fueled tensions with Mexico, further deepened the nation's sectional divide. James K. Polk, a president driven by a fervent belief in manifest destiny, oversaw a period of dramatic expansion for the United States. His presidency was marked by the acquisition of vast territories in the West, including California and the Pacific Northwest, fulfilling his campaign promise to expand the nation's reach from sea to shining sea. However, Polk's expansionist policies also led to conflict, most notably the Mexican-American War, a bloody conflict that raised profound questions about the morality of expansion and the treatment of conquered peoples. Zachary Taylor, a national hero for his military victories in the Mexican-American War, entered the White House with little political experience. His brief presidency was consumed by the escalating debate over slavery, as the nation grappled with the question of whether to allow its expansion into newly acquired territories. Taylor's sudden death, just a year into his term, further fueled the sectional tensions that would soon erupt into civil war. Millard Fillmore assumed the presidency upon the death of Zachary Taylor, inheriting a nation increasingly divided over the issue of slavery. Fillmore's support for the Compromise of 1850, a series of laws intended to quell the sectional conflict, ultimately failed to bridge the widening chasm between North and South. His signing of the Fugitive Slave Act, a law that compelled citizens to assist in the capture of runaway slaves, further inflamed tensions and fueled the abolitionist movement. Franklin Pierce's presidency was marked by escalating sectional tensions and the growing specter of civil war. His support for the Kansas-Nebraska Act, a law that allowed for the expansion of slavery into new territories, further inflamed the debate and led to violence in Kansas, earning it the grim moniker, Bleeding Kansas. Pierce's foreign policy initiatives, intended to expand American influence abroad, were overshadowed by the growing crisis at home. James Buchanan's presidency proved to be a tumultuous period in American history as the nation teetered on the brink of civil war. Buchanan's inability to effectively address the secession of southern states, coupled with his perceived inaction in the face of growing crisis, contributed to the outbreak of the Civil War. His presidency serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of unity and the devastating consequences of political inaction. Chapter 16. Abraham Lincoln, Savior of the Union. Abraham Lincoln, a man of unwavering conviction and profound empathy, led the nation through its darkest hour, the American Civil War. Lincoln's unwavering commitment to preserving the Union, coupled with his moral clarity on the issue of slavery, shaped his presidency and forever etched his name in the annals of American history. His Emancipation Proclamation, a bold wartime measure that declared the freedom of slaves in Confederate-held territory, marked a turning point in the war and in the nation's journey toward equality. Chapter 17. Andrew Johnson, Reconstruction and Impeachment. Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's successor, faced the daunting task of guiding a nation through the tumultuous period of Reconstruction. His lenient approach towards the former Confederate states and his resistance to granting full citizenship rights to freed slaves sparked conflict with the Republican-controlled Congress, culminating in his impeachment by the House of Representatives. Though acquitted by the Senate, Johnson's presidency remains a cautionary tale of the challenges of reconciliation and the importance of ensuring equal justice for all. Chapter 18. Ulysses S. Grant, War Hero in the White House. Ulysses S. Grant, the celebrated Civil War general, brought his military prowess and unwavering determination to the presidency. His administration focused on consolidating national reunification and advancing the rights of formerly enslaved people. Rutherford B. Hayes's ascension to the presidency was mired in controversy, the result of a fiercely contested and ultimately disputed election. The Compromise of 1877, which resolved the electoral deadlock, effectively ended Reconstruction in the South, leaving many African Americans vulnerable to disenfranchisement and Jim Crow laws. James A. Garfield's presidency, though tragically cut short by an assassin's bullet just months into his term, offered a glimpse of progressive leadership. Garfield, a staunch advocate for civil rights, sought to heal the wounds of sectionalism and advance the cause of equality for all Americans. Chester A. Arthur, elevated to the presidency following Garfield's assassination, defied expectations by embracing reform and challenging the spoils system that plagued American politics. His signing of the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, a landmark piece of legislation that established merit-based hiring for government positions, marked a turning point in the fight against corruption and patronage. Grover Cleveland's presidency, notable for its non-consecutive terms, reflected the growing pains of a nation grappling with industrialization, immigration, and economic inequality. Cleveland, a Democrat in a Republican-leaning era, championed fiscal conservatism and tariff reform, engaging in fierce debates over the role of government in regulating the economy. His presidency serves as a reminder of the cyclical nature of American politics and the enduring debates over economic policy. Benjamin Harrison's presidency, sandwiched between the two terms of Grover Cleveland, witnessed significant economic and social change. Harrison, a Republican, oversaw the passage of the Sherman Antitrust Act, a landmark piece of legislation aimed at curbing the power of monopolies and promoting competition in the marketplace. His administration also saw the expansion of the U. Grover Cleveland's unprecedented return to the White House for a second, non-consecutive term speaks to his enduring popularity and the volatile political climate of the late 19th century. His second term, however, was dominated by the Panic of 1893, a severe economic depression that tested his leadership and shaped his legacy. Cleveland's response to the crisis, marked by his commitment to the gold standard and his opposition to government intervention, remains a subject of debate among historians. William McKinley's presidency marked a turning point in American history as the nation emerged from the shadows of the 19th century and embraced its role as a global power. McKinley's leadership during the Spanish-American War, a conflict that signaled the end of Spanish colonialism and the rise of American imperialism, ushered in a new era of American foreign policy. His assassination, just months into his second term, tragically cut short his presidency and cast a pall over the dawn of the 20th century. Theodore Roosevelt, a man of boundless energy and unwavering conviction, brought his progressive ideals and his square deal to the White House. Roosevelt, a champion of conservation, trust-busting, and labor rights, forever changed the role of the presidency, transforming it into a bully pulpit for social justice and national reform. His efforts to regulate big business, protect natural resources, and promote consumer safety left an indelible mark on American society. William Howard Taft, Roosevelt's hand-picked successor, struggled to live up to the legacy of his charismatic predecessor. Taft, a skilled administrator and jurist, continued many of Roosevelt's progressive policies, but his more cautious approach and his perceived coziness with big business alienated many progressives. His later appointment as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, a position he had long coveted, allowed him to leave a lasting legacy on American jurisprudence. Woodrow Wilson's presidency was forever shaped by the outbreak of World War I, a conflict that drew the United States into the vortex of global war. Wilson, initially committed to neutrality, ultimately led the nation to victory, emerging as a key figure in shaping the post-war world order. His 14 points, a blueprint for lasting peace, and his advocacy for the League of Nations reflected his idealistic vision of international cooperation, though ultimately the U. Warren G. Harding's presidency, marked by his promise of a return to normalcy after the tumultuous years of war and social upheaval, ushered in an era of prosperity and cultural change. Harding, an affable and popular figure, promoted business-friendly policies and sought to reduce the role of government in American life. Calvin Coolidge, known as Silent Cal for his laconic style, presided over a period of economic growth and cultural dynamism. Coolidge, a staunch believer in limited government and individual initiative, continued the pro-business policies of his predecessor, fostering an era of unprecedented prosperity. His presidency, however, also witnessed growing social and economic disparities, setting the stage for the economic turmoil that would follow. Herbert Hoover's presidency was tragically defined by the onset of the Great Depression, a devastating economic crisis that plunged the nation into despair. Hoover, a self-made man who had risen from humble beginnings, initially struggled to grasp the magnitude of the crisis, clinging to his belief in individual initiative and limited government intervention. His efforts to combat the Depression, though ultimately insufficient, laid the groundwork for the New Deal programs of his successor. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, elected during the depths of the Great Depression, ushered in an era of unprecedented government activism and social reform with his New Deal programs. Roosevelt's leadership during the Depression, characterized by his empathy for the common man and his willingness to experiment with bold solutions, restored hope to a nation reeling from economic despair. His leadership during World War II, guiding the nation to victory against fascism, solidified his place as one of the most consequential presidents in American history. Harry S. Truman, thrust into the presidency upon Roosevelt's death, faced the daunting task of navigating the final days of World War II and the dawn of the Cold War. Truman's decision to use atomic bombs against Japan, a controversial act that hastened the war's end but ushered in the nuclear age, remains a subject of intense debate. His leadership in establishing the United Nations and confronting Soviet expansionism shaped the post-war world order. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the revered World War II general, brought his military experience and his calming presence to the White House during a time of Cold War tensions and domestic prosperity. Eisenhower's presidency was marked by his commitment to containing communism, his role in ending the Korean War, and his support for the construction of the interstate highway system, a massive infrastructure project that transformed American transportation. John F. Kennedy's presidency, tragically cut short by assassination, captivated the nation with its youthful idealism and its vision of a new frontier. Kennedy's charisma, his eloquence, and his commitment to civil rights inspired a generation. His handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis, a tense standoff with the Soviet Union that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war, demonstrated his cool-headed leadership in the face of existential threat. Lyndon B. Johnson, Kennedy's successor, pushed forward an ambitious legislative agenda aimed at creating a great society by combating poverty, expanding educational opportunities, and advancing civil rights. Johnson's presidency, however, was also consumed by the escalating conflict in Vietnam, a war that divided the nation and cast a long shadow over his domestic achievements. Richard Nixon's presidency was marked by both groundbreaking foreign policy achievements and a domestic scandal that would ultimately lead to his resignation. Nixon's opening of relations with China, his détente with the Soviet Union, and his negotiations to end the Vietnam War marked a significant shift in American foreign policy. However, his involvement in the Watergate scandal, a cover-up of a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, tarnished his legacy and eroded public trust in government. Gerald Ford, thrust into the presidency following Nixon's resignation, faced the daunting task of restoring faith in government and healing a nation divided by Watergate. Ford's pardon of Nixon, a controversial decision intended to move the nation beyond the scandal, drew criticism from some, but also helped to begin the process of reconciliation. His presidency, though brief, marked a period of relative stability after the turmoil of the early 1970s. Jimmy Carter, a former governor of Georgia, campaigned as an outsider, promising to restore honesty and integrity to the White House. Carter's presidency was marked by his commitment to human rights, his efforts to promote peace in the Middle East with the Camp David Accords, and his attempts to address the energy crisis. However, his presidency was also challenged by a stagnant economy, the Iran hostage crisis, and a growing sense of national malaise. Chapter 40. Ronald Reagan, the Great Communicator. Ronald Reagan, a former actor and governor of California, ushered in an era of conservative resurgence with his optimistic message and his belief in limited government, free markets, and a strong national defense. Reagan's presidency was marked by his tax cuts, his deregulation of the economy, his military buildup, and his role in ending the Cold War. His Reaganomics policies and his staunch anti-communism continue to be debated by historians. Chapter 41. George H.W. Bush, From Cold War to Gulf War. George H.W. Bush, Reagan's vice president, presided over the peaceful end of the Cold War and the reunification of Germany. However, his presidency was also defined by his response to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, launching the Gulf War, a decisive military victory that showcased American military might, but also raised questions about the limits of American power in the post-Cold War world. Chapter 42. Bill Clinton, the New Democrat. Bill Clinton, a former governor of Arkansas, campaigned as a New Democrat, promising to balance economic growth with social justice. Clinton's presidency was marked by a booming economy, low unemployment, and a budget surplus. He also signed into law the North American Free Trade Agreement, known as NAFTA, and appointed more women and minorities to his cabinet than any previous president. Chapter 43. George W. Bush, 9/11s, and the War on Terror. George W. Bush's presidency was forever shaped by the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks on the United States. In response to the attacks, Bush launched the War on Terror, invading Afghanistan and toppling the Taliban regime, which had harbored al-Qaeda, the terrorist group responsible for 9/11s. He also signed into law the Patriot Act, a controversial piece of legislation that expanded the government's surveillance powers. Chapter 44. Barack Obama, Hope and Change. Barack Obama, the first African-American president of the United States, swept into office on a wave of hope and change. Obama inherited a nation grappling with the Great Recession, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. He signed into law the Affordable Care Act, the most significant piece of healthcare reform legislation since Medicare and Medicaid. He also oversaw the end of the Iraq War and the killing of Osama bin Laden. Chapter 45. Donald J. Trump, Make America Great Again. Donald J. Trump, a businessman and reality TV star, campaigned on a populist message of economic nationalism and promised to make America great again. Trump's presidency was marked by his unconventional style, his use of Twitter, his trade wars with China, his withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement, and the Paris Agreement on climate change, his appointment of 2 conservative justices to the Supreme Court, and his impeachment by the House of Representatives for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Outro: A legacy etched in time. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey through the presidencies of the United States. From the Founding Fathers to the present day, each president has left their mark on this nation, shaping its destiny through their triumphs and their failures, their visions and their shortcomings. We hope you gained a deeper understanding of the leaders who have shaped this nation, the challenges they faced, the decisions they made, and the enduring legacy they have left on the world stage. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content.